slides here. Very well. All right, folks, here we are. Welcome to continuation of our bi-weekly, it's almost become weekly now, our conference calls, our webinars with industry experts. We've had the pleasure of hosting several interesting profiles and interesting names in the past. I'm delighted to have some top guns with us, some big hitters on our call today. This topic, I'm sure, is of relevance to anybody and everybody in the current situation that we're in, that most people find themselves in. Whether it's about, starting your own business, whether it's about starting a side business. A lot of people worried about their jobs, maybe the particular industry like aviation or tourism or travel, any of the industries may be badly hit. A lot of people thinking about, what they want to do with their business lives, with their corporate lives. So I thought it'd be interesting to get some very interesting profiles with us on our call today and talk to them about how they managed to do so well in the world of entrepreneurship. So we have Mr. Abhishek Shah with us. Abhishek is the co-founder of RSA Logistics, a big name. I guess you probably, unless you're living under a rock, you probably heard of them. They're a big name in the world of logistics. And then we have Junaid with us as well. Junaid is the founder for Ideal Realty and a partner with Vision ARY as well. And then we have Mr. Habila, who is a vice president with Arton Capital. And all of these individuals have one common thing, as I've gotten to know over the past few weeks and months, that, not only are they kind of, successful at what they do themselves, but they're also helping other people become successful. And that's why a big thank you to all of you for taking the time to be on this call. Maybe you can share with some of your ideas with the people we have watching. So I'll start off this conversation with Abhishek. Abhishek, again, thank you so much for being with us. Wanted to ask you, Abhishek, this journey of entrepreneurship, something you always thought about, growing up, you're like, people want to be a fireman or a policeman, or, you said, I want to be an entrepreneur, something you stumbled into.
Yeah, thank you very much, Omar, and thank you to the other panelists and everybody watching for your time. I appreciate this opportunity. The element of entrepreneurship, I think when we were growing up and we were young, didn't really exist sort of in that kind of a limelight way. It was businessmen, and I think for me, my upbringing is definitely a big part in how I looked at the future. And I come from my father was a first generation businessman, self-made man. So I think seeing him create his own journey and his own life, and we grew up actually in East Africa, in Nairobi, in Kenya. So it was a very different environment, very very raw, and it was a time of actual great business opportunity. And then we moved into the UAE just before the UAE kicked off in 2001. So I've always been around this element of business growth, business opportunity, and finding this niche overall. So, and funny enough, my nationality is Kenyan. This is a funny story. And I was always getting frustrated when I was in university in England that my friends would just say on Wednesday that let's go to Amsterdam for the weekend. And I was like, I need about 3 months notice, guys. I can't really just hop on a plane like that because, I needed the visas. So I got really frustrated. And after university, I was like, I'm moving to Singapore. They had a fantastic opportunity to become a permanent resident, and it changed my nationality. And I actually couldn't get a job because it was 2009, the height of the financial crisis, and that sort of forced me to go back, and that's when we sort of founded RSA. So it was also sort of a need of the hour that forced you into finding what basically was an opportunity that allowed you to say that, okay, I can create value for somebody in this, and I think that's the main question you had in here, combined with sort of deep passion. And then, could I ever work for somebody? I don't know. I've never really done it to a certain degree. I had some opportunities, but I think entrepreneurship has that double-edged sword of you're all in at some point, and there's only yourself to blame, and you can't really blame it on anything else. So I think that journey comes with the upbringing, but you learn on a repetitive basis And if you don't, I think you're putting yourself in a tough position going forward. And that's my view on how I look at life and what entrepreneurship really is. And today I'm a big advocate for it, and I think I've seen it change lives. And I personally believe that entrepreneurship can have some of the largest impact in the world going forward when you look at people creating these game-changing organizations that create jobs, that create impact, and then eventually create business models that change the way we do things. And I think when you come with that kind of an attitude and you're thinking with a customer's pain point in mind, entrepreneurship really is the mother of all innovation.
Very good, right? And isn't that true? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Innovation, I think a big piece of what I guess all of us, including myself, do every day, trying to find creative ways to, in this economy, survive and then hopefully thrive. Junaid, let me bring you in. Was it when your career in GQ didn't work out? Is that when you decided? That when you decided to come to real estate? I just want a quick introduction, Junaid. How did you end up with this business? And what a fantastic business it is.
Thank you very much, first of all, for this opportunity. I think it's a great platform for us, people like me, Abhishek, I just heard him, and Mr. Abila. So yeah, it's an amazing platform. I think it's somewhere our duty as well to give it back to what we have learned over the period of time. So I've been in Dubai for the last 18 years. My journey started, it's a funny story in a way. I went from jobs to jobs, odd jobs. I mean, normally you hear these kind of stories in US, not in Dubai much, but I've done a lot of odd jobs from storekeeper to whatnot. When I started my career in Dubai, I was nowhere. And somehow I had this realization inside me that I'm good at something. And that is the key to become an entrepreneur. You need to first find out what you're good at. Luckily for me, I think I found out a bit early in my career when I was 22, 23, is it something I found out is that I'm good at something and I'm good at convincing people. So that is how I, ended up into brokerage industry, because one of the greatest thing, even if it is a good deal or a bad deal, you need to be a good convincer. You need to have the right points at the right time.
Influencer, yeah.
You must be talking the right thing at the right time. There is no point thinking about what I could have said or not when the moment is gone. So luckily for me, I think it was a blessing that I realized that this is something I'm good at. And, started my journey very slowly in 2005 and 6 into real estate. Most of the deals I used to sit at, I used to close. So yeah, at that moment, I got that feeling, that this is something I'm good at. I'm not good at anything else. This is the only virtue that I have probably. And although my education was in IT, to be honest, and I left it halfway, and then I came to Dubai, but that's a long story. A lot of things are important when you are looking towards a career into an entrepreneurship. Personally, I believe it's not for everyone. Number one, it's not something that everyone can do. You need a lot of nerves, as Abhishek also rightly pointed out, because you're going all in. Your chips are on the table. You don't have any backup income coming up in most of the cases. So you need to be really sure what you're doing. And I probably will advise entrepreneurs, especially from my side or Asia side. In Western countries, the idea is a bit different. The education system is a bit different. However, in our country, I think what my preference should be that one should give their career a bit of kickstart from somewhere, learn from the right set of people, probably in a mid to small scale company where you get to know your leaders, and then take it forward from there. It has to be.
We'll get to this. We'll get to this interesting piece, Junaid. Very interesting. I want you to hold on to that thought. You mentioned this idea of nerves, and make sure that you've got kind of the nerves to take this through. Habib, let me bring you into the conversation. So look, all of us, January, February, we're thinking about all these plans for 2020, these big plans, and then our life changed. I'm just curious, Habib, you've obviously been in business, for many years, in the influencing business and sales and call it what you may. I'm just curious, if you think about it, this idea of entrepreneurship or running your own business, running your own show, what would you say off the top of your head, just one, two, three, maybe attributes, skills, like, Junaid mentioned being able to influence. He said that was maybe something that he was good at. Like I was sitting down, closing deals, and I thought, why don't I do this for myself? Just curious for you, Habila, what are two, three kind of skills, attributes that you would say if you have those, maybe entrepreneurship is something you should consider, otherwise stay away?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Omar, for this opportunity. Such a great platform, and I really like the conversation already and the line it's going towards. I think being an entrepreneur it's all about, it's something you nurture. It's not something I would say you're born with. Everybody is born with almost the same ability to succeed. But only few people actually, again, the nerve part of it that, Junaid talked about is something that, you need to have. Now, being an entrepreneur, you need to have certain attributes. And this is mainly something that I think that you need to have passed through before you get to where you are actually going to. And one of the main thing is, your ability to not give up. Okay, because when you are starting every business, there's definitely going to be so much obstacle, especially when you have to fund that business by yourself. A lot of people give up because they feel, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's just give up. But if you look at most of the people who are successful today in, the business world, these are people who have actually stood their ground to say, you know what, even though I fall 7 times, I'm going to get up 8 times, or rather 7 times, to keep pushing. Another thing is you need to be able to understand if you are actually a leader or a manager. You see, there are two different things. Not everybody who is a leader can be a good manager. So you need to understand the point at which you want to be an entrepreneur, but also want people to help you run that business.
That's it.
It's important that you should be the boss, but you should have people running your day-to-day activity, because a lot of mistake that I've seen entrepreneurs make is they want to run the whole show. All right. But this is a big thing when you think you want to run the whole show. You need to be able to understand what are your strengths in a business. If you're a salesman and you put up a company selling, you need to understand if your talent as the CEO or owner of that company is to keep doing sales and forget about the management aspect of it. All right. There are people who are good who will definitely manage your business. Another thing you need to look at is your ability to be able to have what I call it passion or emotional connection between yourself and your business.
Love it.
Very important to really, really love what you do. Don't just start a business because you feel, you know what, Mr. X is doing that and I think he's succeeding and let me do the same thing. No, there has to be a passion. You need to be able to look at your strength, which is very, very, very important. So I feel that these are some of the attributes that and every entrepreneur should have when they're starting up a business. It's very important that you have these things.
This is gold, Habila. So resilience, then the idea of kind of scaling the business, right? That's a conversation I'm sure you've all had in your lives as well. How do you we're pretty good at what we're doing right now. How do we create other leaders? Right, Mao Zedong, the Chinese leader, once said, when a great leader's finished his or her work, everyone will say, I did it myself, which is that environment of creating empowerment and creating other leaders and so on. And I love this idea of the emotional connection. So, so for those of you who are listening or who will be listening in the next few days, please note that, just the flavor of the month might not be the right business to get into, right? So, if right now you're thinking, just going to start making masks, don't start making masks because, if there's no emotional connection, you'll do it for a little while. and then you'll stop. And isn't it true that if you kind of love what you do, and it's a cliche, I know many people talk about this, but if you kind of wake up every day looking forward to what's next, then you're pretty much on the right track. Abhishek, let me bring you in again. Let me ask you this thing of that you spoke about also, doubt or fear, or let me ask you, man, that's an important question. We've got people who don't have millions of dirhams saved up, who might want to start a small ice cream shop or a small business of some kind, services or products. In this journey you've had over a decade, any time you can think of, or any occasions where fear or nerves, or were you ever thinking, what the heck did I get myself into? How are we going to get out of this problem? And I'm just curious, how did you get over that?
Well, first, anybody that tells you they've not made decisions they regret, or they're is definitely not being fully open with you. No, I mean, there's been tremendous amounts of learning and moments where you regret a business decision that you made, a structure that you did, or whatever it is from that side. And I think that's what's not talked about enough, when people are sharing their journey. And I mean, the short answer is there's multiple periods of time where like, oh damn, whatever, right? Because you always go in with the intentions of, I wanted to do this, and this was sort of my decision-making process. And then of course everyone goes, hindsight is 2020. But when you look back, you had all the signs, right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes that element of gut versus actual quantitative data, and sometimes it's a combination of both that you need to be able to make the right decision. I mean, so getting over that, I mean, the only experience that I've had in that is that, yeah, you can do a post-mortem of what I did wrong, and then have the learning set out so you don't do the same thing again, and share those learnings with your team, so that knowledge is shared. But then after that, move on, live on, and see how you can basically salvage the situation. And for any of those who actually know my industry, it's a common occurrence. I mean, we move stuff around. It's complicated. It's sensitive cargo. Things happen all the time, and it's a relationship game, right? So the moment you're able to maintain really good relationships, you know that the solution is going to be challenging to find, but hopefully the long-term and lifetime customer value is going to be really important in that, whether it be with customers, partners, vendors, on the likes there. So, I think it's very simple in that front. Just think about the long game. I think that's really true. So I think what Kabila mentioned earlier about, just have some sort of real long-term benefit in mind. I think today with the tech element, there's too much, or at least I think now post WeWork or post COVID, profitability has now become a talked about requirement rather than just valuation, which was nuts to me. I'm old school, right? I like profit rather than burning valuation from that end. But if today you're an entrepreneur that wants to start something, the world today is set up so well for you, where you could still have your job at the moment and at least experiment on the side, start on the side. You can outsource nearly everything. You can test the market, check product market fit. You can prototype. You can set up a very simple online platform, do your testing, sell on Amazon, whatever it might be. There's enough tools and things that are capable that you pay on a per transaction basis, so you're not having to invest huge amounts of money upfront to test your idea. And I think you got to combine, like Kabila mentioned as well, of what is your real passion that you can wake up every day. Because when you have these tough times, what's going to get you back in front of your people and face them and say, hey, we're going to get through this? Because people can tell when you're lying and not being genuine about that, right? Because if you don't believe it, that you're going to get through it, and you have long-term belief in this business, it's very hard to motivate and get the right talent.
Well, I mean, look, you can fake it till you make it. But sooner or later, people find out. Sooner or later, I agree with you.
That's another model that people choose, and I totally respect that. That's their choice. That's not something I would personally do myself or recommend, just because it's too difficult now, right? I mean, the world is becoming overly transparent.
Yeah, sustainably to lead.
And definitely in a post-COVID world now, profitability is back on the game, right? Everybody wants a road to profitability or profit, at least a company that can be unit economically sustainable for a long period of time. So I mean, that would be my advice. If you've got an idea, check the passion, check the business viability, and check how you can basically do it in a very, very short-term experimental way before you actually commit to it long-term.
So this is a key question, right? Because over the past decade or so since I've been doing this, right? People will always ask, in a leadership session that we'll be doing, or we'll be talking about creativity, innovation in a workshop, and people would say, look, there's two ways, right? There is the way of, cold turkey, stopping everything I have right now, or God forbid, in the case of people losing their jobs, nothing else to do, jumping into a, your back's against the wall kind of mindset, and then you have nothing to do but to succeed. There's no other option. Failure is not an option. Or it's kind of what Abhishek is saying, which is, because the world has gone virtual, the digital cliff, the digital transformation, that whole kind of piece that's, our past 4 or 5 months has transpired, maybe it is possible for you to kind of have something going on the side as you evaluate your ideas, capability and capacity, and your own capability and capacity to do this. Junaid, let me ask you, in your opinion, is it this idea of doing a side thing or jumping fully into it? Just curious what your thoughts are on this, because again, from the South Asian community, obviously a Pakistani background myself as well. I'm generalizing hugely here, but business is not always encouraged, right? So we're gonna get a job, right? So all our families, right? It's the first thing you do when you graduate, get a job, and if you get no other job, you become a salesperson. So just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'm luckily from a Maiman background. So
yeah.
in our case, it's a bit different. I mean, the families that we have grown up with, my cousins, my elders, they always try to tell us. I mean, I think Maiman has been one of the most original entrepreneurs in the Maimans, Gujaratis. They've been the original entrepreneurs in terms of South Asia. See, I kind of agree with what Abhishek said, because that is how I entered into my business as well. I was doing it as a side business. I used to wrap up my work at 4:30. I was doing it a bit earlier than it could happen. I was doing extra effort. I used to come office early, finish up my work by 4 o'clock, and then go into the market and be in the real estate world. However, at one point, you have to make this call, and that call is very important when you take a switch, because there is a certain level of business you can run being a side member or doing it as a side. Once you want to actually make a mark and start making money out of it, I'm just going to go a little bit reverse on it. See, if you have decided that you're good at something, and that is the most important thing, first of all, that you need to understand that you're good at something. Like Habila also said, you cannot jump into a business because somebody is doing it. It's impossible. It could be a fluke here and there, but it's impossible to make it happen. At the same time, I think general mistakes are preparing the right team. Go enter with the right team, whether you can take partners or people on payroll. It depends on your financial situation. But it is very, very important that you enter into this small or big setup with the right set of human resources, because that's where good minds, good business models go down. If you do not have the right human resources available. Just for an example, I mean, real estate 6-7 years ago versus now, it's completely different. Now, if Facebook and everybody has become our television, and that is where we market, and the competition level is so high that, again, it's changing every week what we need to do next. So right amount of people who are supporting you into your marketing, your human resources, your management, as not everybody could be a right manager, which I am not in this case. I'm personally not a good manager. I am a good leader. I have created many good brokers, alhamdulillah, in my career, and they've been doing very well. But I was never a very good CEO. I was never a very good manager. So, and I'm still not. So you need to have that acceptance level, that you need the right finance guy, you need the right marketing guy. Now, whether you bring them as partners with shareholders, or whether you bring them on payroll, and you have to bring people at the right payroll as well, because that is another mistake. What people do is bringing cheap staff in and thinking that they will be producing results. It's impossible. Mark my words, it's impossible. It never happens. Instead of hiring them cheap, bring them as on some salary and have some shareholding for them ready, so that they grow with the company. And at that level, their motivation level to work with you, to grow your company, would be much, much higher than you're paying a below average salary. And number one, there are a few other things that I want to add if I have time, which many entrepreneurs skip early in their career, and then they realize this later in the career, is working like a maniac is something that normally entrepreneurs do these days. I mean, they have no timings. They're working 12 hours, 14 hours, and it's sometimes a requirement of that business as well. But at the same time, there are few things. For example, if you look at the sport, and I always compare business with sport. That's one of the things that I take inspiration from. And one of the sport that I take inspiration from is tennis, because there is no coaching happening. It's 1-to-1 game. So if you see the top 10 level games, in terms of ability and technique, stamina, everything, it's on par. Everybody is same. It's very few things that differentiate them from each other. And one of the top things are the mental health that these guys have. This is the next level thing that they have, and they create that mental health by giving at least some food to their physique. And that is where it becomes very important. If you want to sustain a good business, have the right mind level, working at the same time, you need to take care of your body. It is very, very important for your business.
Let me just ask you 1 second, Junaid, to park that thought, because I want to bring in Habila as well. Something interesting you said, the mindset and wellness. I know these are important conversations as well, because you cannot give to others what you do not have yourself. And stressed out managers, stressed out leaders create stressed out organizations. And then you get into the survival mindset. And it's hilarious, right? Over the past decade or so, I think I've trained now over 50,000 people in 50 countries, right? And then you stay in touch with some of these people, and you find like some leaders, some companies perennially in trouble, right? They're in trouble. I mean, just, no matter, things could be good or bad, but you talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, times are tough, recession, this happened, that happened. And other companies, they just keep focusing on what they have as opposed to what they don't have. And something interesting that you said, Junaid, and I want to bring in Habila for that comment as well, is, you're talking about this idea of taking people along with you. So they say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. I know, Habila, you're a big proponent. I think you're the best person to ask this question. You're a big proponent of community, and I know you're very active in your community and doing stuff for your community, and whether that results in business or no business, it's just kind of helping people grow. I'm just curious, Habila, would you recommend that to people who are looking at starting a business, being an entrepreneur? You've got to have the social element to do the networking piece, reach out to your community. Just curious, your thoughts on that.
I think the matter of fast and far is they go hand in hand. However, I think it's important to understand that big things that last forever don't go too fast. So you need to understand this. You need to understand it. It is okay for sometimes for you to go alone, but it's not completely okay for you to keep going alone just because you think you want to go far. You can't go far if you're alone. You need a community of people. Because no man is an island. No man is an island. And so because we are not an island, we need each other to be able to move together, to be able to grow together. And this is why Junaid said something about, you need to understand that if you're not good in finance, you bring in someone who is good at finance from day one. Have a structure of a financial controller from day one, all right? Have a structure of a risk compliant officer from day one. You need to put all these things together. Sometimes it's not even about paying them. It's about sharing the dream with them. And this is where the passion comes in, Omar. If you have a passion and you sit with someone and speak to those set of people and share with them that dream passionable, even if you're not giving them a dime, they will go with you.
Yeah.
They will go with you because people buy into what you believe in. And this is
People
why
buy into belief, for sure.
if successful salespeople believe in what they're selling, all right? If you're taking a job just because you don't have a job, you can never be successful in that job. This is what I have seen all through my career. I have seen it. And I tell you what, I have been involved in working even for one of the biggest oil and gas companies in the world, Chevron. This is where I started my career. And I recall when I was leaving, people were thinking, are you mad? Are you crazy? Because at that time, this was maybe many years ago, even as a fresh graduate out of university, they were paying me maybe around $6,000. This was many years ago. And I was leaving that constantly paid job to something I don't even know if I was gonna make that money or not. But what kept me going was the passion, was a dream. I knew I needed to do something different. I knew I had a passion in me to be able to sit with people, to talk to people, to convince people. I needed to have something people remember me for forever. And this is why each time I talk to people about, passport, I say one thing, that you remember me forever because I remain in your life forever. For every airport you cross, you remember me. I change your life forever, forever. Even if I'm not if I'm not existing today, you still remember me. So having community is a very important thing. You need to be able to build a community of people for you to be able to move together, to be able to travel together so you can go far and expand your reach. And this is why companies who see their staff as family and who take them as family, not just by words, but by even showing them that you belong. This is our company. It's not my company. They actually succeed and grow bigger.
Interesting, Habila, you said that, right? I mean, this is, and then look, 5 months ago, I think all of this was stripped bare, right? I mean, remember 5 months ago or 4 months ago, we started receiving all these emails, right? We are with you, right? Every bank, right? We are in this together. What happened to those emails? I'm not getting those emails anymore. Now they want me to pay, right? But it's interesting, right? Really, really nice, Habila, something you said. Maybe you think about this, and I want to ask Abhishek, because I think he's a good kind of person to ask this, which is this idea of fear, right? So generally people say the fear of rejection or fear of loss or fear of failure is not something we're born with, it's something we learn, right? So Richard Branson, in his book, The Virgin Way, spoke about train the brain, right? So he was basically, I've trained my brain not to look at failure as an end, but rather as a beginning. And maybe you would agree that you learn more from failure is a better teacher than success. Just curious, Abhishek, to ask you around stress and stress management. And I know every day you're making big decisions. You're making decisions that maybe not only impacting your business, but also impacting the lives of people who work for you. Just curious, how do you, because I'm going to ask the same question to actually all three of you, because I know that's a very, very big question that people always think about. Paychecks, Junaid, Habila, and Abhishek, paychecks have become, or they are like a drug, right? We get used to it, like a crutch, right? It's good to have a paycheck, right? It's like it's good to have that feeling of validation. Somebody loves me, right? And then all of a sudden you go into this world where it's you're on your own. So just curious, guys, all of you, and we'll start with Abhishek, about 2 minutes each. Stress management. What do you guys do for that?
So I mean, look, you're choosing this life when you go into it, right? Because you know that it's you. There's nobody else around it. And here's where I think the value of mentorship is extremely important. When you're a young entrepreneur or a first-time entrepreneur, entrepreneurship has no age. That at least you had some experience of somebody that can guide you to say that these things happen or expect that. And I think that having a couple of those people early in your career is just it's exceptionally valuable. And because they just set you up that knowing that, okay, if you fail, you're fine, and being comfortable with that and allowing you to fail, and you let your business partner down or whatever it might be, that's always going to be a very truthful experience for you. And you can introspect whenever you want. But my way of dealing with stress is sort of, I don't like to call it stress. I like to call it an outward scenario that you got to bring your breathing back to normal or your heart rate back to normal. So for me, it's always been sport. So kind of like what Junaid mentioned, he's a big sports fan. But for me, it's actually physically doing something, going for a run or doing some sort of training or playing golf or whatever it might be, something that basically gets your mind away, right? And then recently, I've managed to have a few kids. I think actually going and playing with them just takes you away into a different world. And I think that the drug that you talk about, the element that we are all addicted to is actually our phones, right? And the discipline to not start your day or end your day with that is actually one of the things I haven't mastered yet, because I think that's the hardest thing to get away from, because you get a bit of bad news or a bit of good news and it completely changes your state, changes what you think. And you automatically get stressed when you can do nothing about it. I mean, you may get an email at 9 o'clock at night, but you can't do anything about it. I mean, until the next day, right?
That's it.
But we still read it. We still are all hooked in. We expect that of our team members. We are expected to respond. And maybe that's just the world that we live in now, right? So it comes down to discipline and having the ability to go away and do something. I know a few of my other entrepreneur friends, it's about reading. Other people go away for, a massage, or some people just, isolate themselves in a room and listen to music. But for me, it's sport. It's, finding my happy place. My happy place today is just, going to my really young kids and they do something silly and I have a good laugh. But it's this discipline of being able to disconnect. For me, I think that when I do that, I feel much happier. And I think COVID was actually one of the best times for me while being home, because I could get those doses of going to my family really quickly and coming back for a call, right? And actually made me much, much better, even though it was a very tough time.
Yeah, I can imagine for your industry as well. Or it's interesting, right? Look, also, Junaid, I'll bring you in. I know you were talking about wellness and well-being and that kind of stuff when I interrupted you last time. But this piece that Abhishek is mentioning, where all of us, right, like every day, the highs are high and the lows are low, right? So we're like every day we're on our phone at night, and we'll get a bad email or a deal didn't go through or something, and then we'll worry about it. And of course, long periods of time exposed to high levels of cortisol. In fact, I'll tell you guys this the other day. I was reading a study when they did the autopsy on the brains of 55-year-old senior business executives who held very stressful jobs. Their brains looked like the same as 85-year-old Alzheimer patients, right? So that's what high levels of exposure to cortisol over a long period of time does. So just curious, stress management. How do you stay alert?
Thank you. I think this is the most important question right now in the times we are in. I think the more we can stress on this point is going to be beneficial for our users. My stress training was done in 2008 financial crash. So that is when I lost my nerves. I went through a lot of things, and as I had some well-wishers beside me, but I got through out of the situation, and then I went to do an Umrah. I thought a lot of things, what I did wrong, what I did right. And here is the thing. So this is what I've learned after 2008 crash. The biggest mistake of my life that I did in 2008 financial crash was, instead of a broker, I became an investor. I bought my own hype that I created for others. So that was the lesson I learned back in those days. However, the moment I was back, there are a few things that I do now very, very regularly to keep myself, because I am doing business in Dubai. I am a broker in Dubai, and I'm a developer in Pakistan, which is obviously a completely 360 world way of doing business. So the stress that is coming out of Pakistan and the stress that is coming out of Dubai is completely different, and it fries your brain if you don't do something about it. So first thing is something that I do, and I recommend everyone doing in whatever way they can afford it, is take small breaks during the year. That's, I think, is something that really works for me. So I take every 3 months, I go on staycation with my kids, any resort. I mean, I'm a resort guy. So I take these staycations very frequently, because I cannot imagine myself, back in those days, this was 1 month off in a year, 2 months off in a year.
Yeah.
They used to leave.
Yeah, remember when we could when we had holidays or leaves?
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I cannot imagine.
When was the last time we had a leave?
Exactly. So I cannot imagine taking that kind of leave out of my business, because, still I have not developed that kind of business which can run on autopilot, which is
We
my
never
dream.
will, man. It's never
No,
gonna
it's my
happen.
dream to do it. Whether I achieve it or not, that's a different story. So what I do is that I take small breaks. That's number one. Number two, not to overthink the situation. No matter how overthink you think, you're not going to find a solution. Sometimes people think, you overthink it and you're going to find a solution, but you're going to actually find a very bad solution, because you're going to actually jump to, you will feel tired of overthinking it. And then you just, close your eyes and pick a solution out of whatever is going on in your mind. Sleep over it, give it some time. Speak to people is the third thing that I'm going to recommend, is speaking to your close friends and family. Could be your wife. In my case, my wife is my best friend, so I talk everything to her. But I think in our life, somebody is there. I think everybody has that somebody who can you talk things out, because the best decision you get is by talking. Because if you're talking only to yourself, it can create hurdles. It can create many issues, and your stress level can go up. But when you talk to others, and especially your close well-wishers, like in my case, my wife, so I talk for hours, and most of the time I found solution during those talks. It's not like she has given me a solution. It's basically during those talks,
like a coaching session. Yeah, the answers are already within.
Yeah, it's like exactly, you're just going through something. So this is the top 3 things that I always have in my list. If I'm not feeling well, if I'm not feeling 100%, I'll take a vacation, whatever way possible. And again, fourth, I will again advise this: keeping yourself healthy
physically, yeah,
is very important to get out of a stressful situation. Some people are smoker, some are not, some have shisha issues. So if you are keeping yourself healthy, trust me, your stress level will automatically go down. So these are the 5 top most important things on my list. Yeah,
this is fantastic, and I am sure this is, even for me, this is valuable to listen and to learn from you guys. Look, physical wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, so tightly knit together, right? And there's a whole about studies this big, doctoral research that shows in times of stress how decision making is impeded. So under high levels of stress and anxiety, you're able to make good decisions is impeded. Your listening skills are impeded, which directly impact trust, which directly impact relationships, spousal relationships, friendships, boss-employee relationships, and customer-salesperson relationships. So key thing is to be able to take care of yourself before you're taking care of your business. Habila, maybe a couple of minutes, and I'll get maybe one last question in before we wrap up. Your ideas and thoughts of stress management, mate.
I think Abhishek and Junaid said the most important things. To be honest, you cannot. You really need to find what you like apart from work to enjoy it. Is it watching movies? Is it sports? Is it a staycation or a vacation or whatever it is? You really need to find that, because it's important. In you being able to come back and re-strategize, because as a leader you need to be like you need to be a man full of wisdom, and a man full of wisdom cannot function or cannot give out wisdom if you are not mentally sound. Okay, so your mental health is very important. For me, what I do is I play golf. I smoke cigars. So I try to find the most exotic cigar lounge to just go sit and have a nice smoke and, and something and just relax. And when I travel again, I do a lot of yachting. So I go on yachts a lot, you know. So this really, really helped me to distress, helps me to think. And my clients ask me, you're always in a good mood. Even when we shout,
Yeah.
you have a way of just calming our spirit. I'm like, yeah, because I'm always in good spirit. You know, my spirit is always calm. So even if it's a situation that looks like a do or die affair, I have a way that I taught the clients to relax and make them feel this will be okay. And you cannot do that if you're personally stressed. And I recall I have someone who, you know, a friend of mine who most times I speak to, and you know, she's always so apprehensive. So she sounds as if she's under so much stress. And I used to get so angry all the time, but I realized that she's going through so much stress that she doesn't even understand. So even when she replies emails to her clients,
Yeah, you can tell the
you
tone.
know, you feel like you're fighting with the client. So you cannot actually function properly with your client, with your staff, if you're not in a good frame of mind. So these things are very important to be able to distress, to be able to take those vacations as much as you can, do what you love to do, hang out with friends, you know, watch movie, do something different. Your spirit needs to be hyped every single time so that you can be able to lead, give wisdom, as well as service your clients very well.
Yeah, and inspire people. Abila, thank you so much for that. I'll get one more question in, and then we'll wrap up. Essentially, I loved what all of you are saying, which is, you know, one of the ways to combat stress, whether it's you're working out, it's doing something that you love to do. And, you know, dopamine and endorphins and serotonin and oxytocin, all the hormones responsible for happiness are released when you are doing things that you love to do, whether it's spending time with your kids, whether it's, you know, kind of, you know, having a cigar or whatever it is. It's essentially having something to look forward to. One of my mentors back in Canada used to tell me the first thing you do in the beginning of the year is book your vacation. And I always, you know, like I used to always think, you know, that's such a, you know, like you can say it because, you know, you're like well off and everything, right? But it's actually the opposite of that. What it did is, you know, how productive we become right before we go on a vacation, right? Everything gets done right before we go on a vacation because that's the way the human mind has something to look forward to. Otherwise, like a long tunnel, you know, without any light. Last question, gents, maybe 2 minutes each or so, and then we'll wrap up, and I'll just summarize this fantastic conversation we've had. Abhishek, I'm just curious. Coronavirus, you know, pandemic situation that we're in. Of course, all of us are based in the UAE, but you know, obviously, you know, people will be hearing us from all over the world. I'm just curious if you're a person right now who's A, lost his or her job, or B, you had it with your boss or with your employer, and you're thinking about this. Would you say, are you crazy to start, you know, thinking about these things in these times, or would you say that, you know, sometimes, you know, great difficulties create great opportunities, and you know, maybe this is the time, right, to look at this. And I just curious. One thing I'll just like maybe quickly each of you to address is, uh, if you've if anybody, God forbid, loses their job, right? They wake up every morning without knowing their paycheck, right? So they wake up and they say, "Oh my God, I don't have a paycheck." What's the difference between those people and you guys? Because you also don't know what your paycheck, right? What's the difference between that person who loses their job and, you know, is worried about their next paycheck, and you guys who don't have a paycheck, right? Just curious, Abhishek, Junaid, and Habila. Abhishek, over to you.
No, thanks for that. I mean, look, one of the things that has been proven over and over again is that in the worst of economic times probably breeds the best, you know, innovations purely by necessity. And I think that's probably an overset. And I'm a personal example of that. Our company started in 2009 in March. So, you know, we timed it completely wrong of when to begin, but it basically changed our business model at that point of how we had to address the customer, and we created new value over a period of time. And then you see Uber, Airbnb, and the likes were all created in the last recession, right? And so it means that today there are co-founders out there waiting for you that probably have a great complementary skill set to your idea and share the same passion, like everybody said earlier, to create, disrupt, and generate new value, right? So I think that's how I would approach it. Keep searching and use platforms like LinkedIn. Talk about your ideas. People are really nice, and they'll come to you.
Yeah.
They'll share ideas with you. They'll compliment, or you'll have the odd challenger in there. That's probably a good thing, right? But send it out to the world, right? And see where there's interest. If it sticks or it hits from that perspective. And coming back down to the difference. I mean, of course, entrepreneurship. Like Junaid mentioned, he has a personal goal of not being. His business can run without him, and the working on the business versus in the business, and all those sorts of things. So there's different stages of entrepreneurship, and when you're a startup and you're basically building, you wear multiple hats. You're the chief compliance officer, as Avila said, and you're the CEO, and you're probably also the admin person as well. So the difference between somebody who's doing entrepreneurship at an early stage and somebody who's getting or lost their job and doesn't have a paycheck there is that you almost have very little to lose, right? From the perspective of I need this to work. If not, I have another idea that's going to work. Everyone has finite resources in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of what they can do, but it's about gathering that mindset, that ability to create and iterate. But don't get emotionally attached to an idea because it didn't work, because that's tough at the start. You may have spent 2 years while you were working on the side. Hey, this is a great idea, and then realize that the market doesn't want it. Okay, adapt it, find out what's next, but use the same basis, the core principles and that core competency, and pivot it to what's basically creating value. And I think that's where a lot of things can get lost. Use the core competency that you created, and I think everyone has said that earlier. Everybody's got a skill set that they can master and be very good at, and see how you can basically create value with that. And in today's time, creating a personal brand is easier than ever, right? Becoming a thought leader is not that difficult either. You just need to put some investment into it and train yourself. And lastly, before I hand over to my colleagues, is that it is your responsibility to continuously learn. In our company, we've done the 70-20-10. 70% of the learning is yourself, 20% we will give you through on the job, and 10% is really formal training, right? Because we expect you to constantly engage yourself, learn through these great online tools of topics that you're interested in, reach out to the world, talk to people. People will teach you. I mean, honestly, people are great when you reach out with a pure intention. And then that's how you keep your skills up to date and really find that missing piece and create that magic business model that may hit and take you to success. And the last one on that is that timing matters a lot, right? For business success, timing matters a lot. So don't discount that. So I think you mentioned the masks idea earlier. If you wanted to start the mask now, you're probably too late, right? You missed the wave. It's probably gone. 40 to 50% of business success is timing. So you've got to be able to understand what's happening in the market. Where is it going? And I've done 2 very bad decisions in my life where I timed the market wrong. So I can tell you from experience, it's true.
No harm in learning from your own experiences. Junaid, maybe a couple of minutes over to you. Your thoughts, business in this time, what would you advise?
Okay, so I think the specific of this question is the people who are dealing with the situation of pandemic where job losses are and somebody has lost the job. And at the same time, what are we feeling as entrepreneurs? Because obviously our business revenues have gone down, and how are we dealing with this situation? So, I mean, the most important thing that is required for a leader or a good employee as well is how good his focus is as to what he's trying to achieve in life. And I will put it into an example, like when you are in a cruise or a boat or a ship and the water is steady, your focus is there, but your focus is not at that level. Let's suppose if you are the captain of the ship, but the moment you enter into these kind of waters, which is currently the pandemic water, now there are 2 choices we have. Either we accept that everything is gone and finished and it's over, or we give our 200% as to what is required. So for example, if I am an employee right now and I've lost my job, then I will be waking up early. I will be suiting, mooting myself a little bit more. I will be grooming myself a bit more. I will be talking to people more. I will be scrolling for jobs more and stay put till I get it. Now, if I don't get it, that is obviously it's not in my hand, but my efforts has to be 300% than what when the water was stable. So that is something that is essentially required. I have learned this again. I'll go back to 2008 when the market when crashed. Most of the people started doing different things. Somebody went into trading, like this mask thing. At that time, there was some sort of plastic trading going on, etc., etc. So people went into different, but whoever remained in their own business and tried to find opportunities at the same time, restructuring their finances and businesses, they are the biggest companies right now. Pre-2008 companies are gone. Actually, companies that were formed, real estate companies I'm talking about, out of recession are the biggest companies today, because they found the opportunity and they were focused into their business line, and they found where the money is, where the growth is, and where the actually transactions can go on, versus people who actually just gave up. And it could be anybody. It could be an entrepreneur. It could be an employee. You can give up, or you need to change gears. You need to change gears because you're losing 6-1 and now you have nothing else to lose. So go extra effort, go change your gears and do your best. And you can, if you stay focused, one can beast that. And what he will achieve out of all this. Let's say, for example, I'm somebody who's looking for a job. If I do what I just said I will do, like, for example, I'm grooming myself more, I am preparing myself, reading more stuff, then I'm preparing myself to win the interview that I'm going to sit in, versus the guy who's not doing what I'm doing. So I'm actually trying to put myself ahead of thousands of people. This is what I would do in times of like, and the same would be happening in my business as well. So yeah.
Fantastic, Junaid. Essentially, what you're saying is preparing yourself, getting, and it's not a matter of if it's not now, it'll be tomorrow. But if you're doing that extra effort, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time that something lands for you. Amila, last word on this idea in this world, current situation. Is the difference mindset? What is the difference you've seen between those people, surviving, not even, or those people thriving? Just curious, man.
I mean, it will all depend on the individual. Some will survive and some will thrive. I don't know if those two English are correct. But you see, it's very important that you have a very positive mindset. When a job loss is not the end of the world. So I always believe that when you lose a job, it means that it's an opportunity and a room for better things to come your way, because at that point, you're in a place where you can actually think and find a solution on what exactly do I want to do next. Sometimes there is no time. People don't have time because they didn't plan to lose their jobs. So when you don't plan to lose your job and boom, it comes, you get in a place whereby you just want a living, you just want an income. It doesn't matter what you do, and COVID-19 basically has taught us so many things. In fact, the whole world. And if you remember, Bill Gates was talking, I think 2 years ago or last year, that the world is busy preparing for wars while they never were preparing for a pandemic. As a scientist, he knew that there is a possibility that something like this can happen. An outbreak of a virus can actually happen and can shut the world down. This is a scientist thinking about the future. Now, as an individual, while you are in a paid employment, how are you thinking? You see, this is the question that people need to start asking themselves, even those who currently have a job right now. Even entrepreneurs, this is what you should start asking yourself. How do we survive the next 2-3 years? Because we don't know what's going to happen. And I tell you, I'm an economist and I've seen the trend. The world is going to get worse. All right. So what are we doing? How are we preparing ourselves? Are we preparing today to survive 2021, 2022? Or are we just thinking, okay, fine, let's look at it and see how it goes? And the same thing applies to people who are in the job or who have lost their job. So you need to think about strategies. This is a time where you need to unleash your ability, your passion, and put it into action. Like Junaid said, this is a time you need to start talking to people more. You need to start thinking out of the box, re-strategizing. All right, if you're used to doing this in this way, how about now thinking about doing it another way to survive? Yeah, so I feel this has to do with the individuality, who we are as individuals, how our positive or negative mindset is. But I would say that I would really encourage that everybody has a positive mindset during this period. We need to start thinking out of the box and thinking about the future. Okay, you believe me, there are a lot of companies who don't have savings. And when I say savings, I mean that if today a crisis happens, do you have money to pay or sustain your employees for the next 3-4 months? Do you? This is the question a lot of companies should start asking themselves, you know? But so many companies do not. We only just want, and then we forget about what do we have as a company in the bank. So it's high time we began to look at the future, to prepare ourselves to thrive and to survive. Okay? Yes. So this is what I have to say on this.
I love it, Abila. Look, guys, I'm mindful of time. I know you guys are slightly busy individuals. So I want to make sure I don't want to take any more time than you've already committed. Abila, Junaid, and Abhishek, thank you so much for taking the time out and having this conversation with us around the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset. Of course, we're all biased because we're entrepreneurs ourselves. So maybe sometimes, it comes across as, well, you should do this because we did it. In fact, what's been brilliant to hear is so much, openness from you, and admitting, where you went wrong and how you could even improve. You could even improve now, and how this is it's not a destination. It's a journey. Entrepreneurship is this. It's not gonna one day we're not gonna wake up and say today we're set forever. It's a journey. And on that journey, some of the things you mentioned that really stuck out with me. Just do a quick, kind of a repeat, kind of the resilience idea and wellness, right? And so not giving up, right? Innovation. And then Abhishek mentioned some of the best ideas are born from, times of crisis and tough times. That's when some of the best ideas are born. I also love this idea of the emotional connection between kind of what you do and the niche that you want to find yourself in. Also, this idea of not getting married to an idea, right? So getting married to the process, but not getting married to the idea, because then if the idea doesn't work, then God forbid you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's not going to happen. And also, for me, a big thing that stuck, with me, that I've actually enjoyed myself is this idea of stress management and wellness and well-being, and how critical this is, because you cannot give to others what you do not have yourself. And scalability came up as a conversation as well, and building leaders of the future, because again, not thinking in your business, but thinking on your business. So, just because, you're not going to become an entrepreneur because you just want to find something else to do because you lost your job. Hopefully you're going to become an entrepreneur because this is something you want to build. And whether you look at it from a community perspective or from a philanthropy perspective, there is nothing better in life than giving other people their hopes and ambitions through jobs, through opportunities. And I know that's something that you guys are doing. God bless you for the great work that you're doing. And I'm sure people will benefit from this as I have. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys on another day soon. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Take care.